Happy Sunday. Let's find a way to a seat. We're going to use a blanket and a block or a book or two blankets, two towels for this practice. As you settle into your version of seat, make sure your spine can get integrated and aligned, and then let's just let the eyes close and we'll find our way to breath. There's this ship full of sailors who have been battered by the ocean's waves for some time now. And as they anxiously look out on the horizon, they see for the first time that they can remember land, this tropical island, or at least what they hope is a tropical island. Several of them are worried it may be a mirage. Give ourselves just 60 more seconds of feeling the spine and regulating the breath here. And when it feels appropriate for you, we'll let the eyes open if they're closed. Let's exhale and drop the chin down to the sternum. As you do so, broaden out the collarbone space. Think about that scapular retraction. And let's just let the head start to move as if you're shaking no, but maybe with a little more emphasis on areas that feel impactful. And then we'll slowly start to lift our head as we continue to move laterally here until eventually, with no rush to make this true, but eventually the chin sits parallel, bottom of the chin sits parallel with the floor. We're going to continue this movement so that we're searching for our cervical spine rotation, playing into that big no mechanism. And then eventually we'll start to work the chin up really slowly as we continue to search for these rotations and any areas that may feel impactful. Eventually, we'll bring the head back to full neutral. And we'll just let that movement kind of settle into the body here for a moment. When it feels right, let's walk ourselves into a little lumbar expansion. So all we're looking to do is tilt the torso forward here until we feel some of that posterior chain pull activation, integration, whatever that feels like within your body. You can be kickstand arms, you can be on your forehead, arms, you can be on your forehead, but the forward movement that gives you the best response is the ideal placement. And just find that ease of breath. And then we'll walk ourselves back up into feet. Let's grab a blanket. A block would work here too, but we're just going to look for something kind of block shaped. Blanket gives you a little bit more flexibility, and bring the bottoms of the feet together. That blanket or block, you can see relatively similar heights, is going to come underneath the right side of our butterfly shape. And with our left elbow, we're just going to energize that left leg down. Now you can use the leverage of the hand to the ankle or shin if that helps. And then the right hand is going to come behind us. You can also, if you have the openness in this abductor region, you can take that left hand to the medial edge, the inside edge of that left thigh as you press and revolve towards the right shoulder. Capturing here not just the lumbar rotation, not just the cervical spine rotation, but really working this medial edge of our left leg. And then we'll relax back to neutral, and we'll switch our block positions. So block or blanket coming underneath that left side. Same thing here where we start to give some energy into that right leg. The hand can help you create leverage, and eventually the left hand comes behind you. If you feel like there's the openness, you can push down on that medial edge. Some asymmetry in the shape, but bilateral expansion. Generally, one side will be more open, one side will be more restrictive than the other. And then we'll come back to neutral when you feel balanced. Extending our legs back out in front of us. All right, leg extension. I am going to prop here with a blanket and a block, but you can do this with two blankets. We're just going to look for a little bit of height. So if you're using that blanket, maybe a block fold with a block on top. The goal here is to be able to capture yourself as we take a forward fold. So the being held portion of this is really important because it dramatically changes how the forward fold impacts our posterior chain. Generally, a posterior chain is going to be lumbar focused. It's going to be restricted in the hamstrings. If we can get past the hamstrings, it's going to get into the lumbar. If we can get past the lumbar, we can get to the upper back. Here, if we get enough brace, and remember, you can still bend your knees. If we get enough brace, we can skip the hamstring requirement, skip the lumbar requirement, and just get into this upper back. So looking for support and then just releasing your forehead. Remember, the block also has 3 directions. So it can sit on the low height, the medium height, or the high height if you have access to a block. If not, you can continue to fold blankets, stack that other blanket until you get the height that's right for your geometry. And then we're just going to settle in to the smoothness and the ease of our breath. As this boat full of sailors gets closer and closer to this island, it becomes more and more apparent that this is not a mirage. This is land. And they are beyond grateful to see it here. One of the things that can negatively impact this shape, because we are pulling on that posterior chain, wrapping around the rib cage, wrapping and protecting the lungs, it can be very easy for our breath to be short. So think about how you can control your breath to ensure your maximum fluidity in respiration, and then how that control of breath impacts your body's ability to relax and melt into the shape. And we'll give ourselves just about 60 more seconds here. And when it feels right and appropriate for you, let's bring our spine back up into a staff-like shape. If we are using two blankets, we can keep the first as a block-like. If you're using one blanket, we're going to go into a roll hot dog shape. So we have a roll behind us. We're going to take our block or our blanket and place that on top. If you're using a block, let's put it on the medium height. If you're using a blanket, we'll fold that into a block-like shape. So head is elevated just a little bit above where the spine's going to be here. And then we are potentially going to need to be a tailbone on top of the blanket, which is fine here. You'll just want to have the knees bent. So it's going to depend on your torso geometry. And supported head, arms falling to the side. If your sacrum is connected to the mat, you can extend the legs. If your sacrum is elevated, then keep the knees bent. And just make sure your palms roll up. The last thing that maybe you want to do is ensure the cervical spine is getting its full length. Something I sometimes like to do is actually manually lengthen that. So clasping the hands on the head and pulling the cervical spine to full length. Before you relax, and that can be so nice. And then just settling in to your body's ability to breathe here. As these sailors make their way onto the island, they start looking around, and there's a lot of really useful things on this island. Coconuts, there's a freshwater stream. Lots of trees. Lots of trees. But there's something very peculiar about this island as well. It seems to be much, much larger than they expected it to be. In fact, when they look off into the horizon, they never see the end of the island. And so, without knowing what else to do, they start walking. They start walking with the intention of finding the other side. Stay right with your body's full capacity to breathe. And to melt continuously into this shape. Really wanting to feel how the blanket underneath you is interacting with your spine and how the musculature, that transverse musculature running from the spinal column out towards those lateral edges, is able to just receive and relax here. Think about your body's ability to relax through each cycle of respiration. That's impacting and benefiting your spine. Begin with the anterior shoulder capsule. Think about how you can relax the shoulders into this shape and into each cycle of breath within this shape. We'll give ourselves just 60 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring the knees to a bent position if they're not already, and then just roll to one side or the other, whatever side feels best. Where we can pull that blanket out from underneath us and then remove the blocker blanket from under the head. We're going to work our way back onto our spine and pull the thighs in towards the torso. And then maybe just give yourself a little lateral rock here. Just something to speak with that musculature that relaxed over the blanket. And then we'll release the feet down to the mat. Let's take our hips and scoot them over to the right side of the mat, and then just let your shoulders follow so that we make our way to the right edge of our mat. Extend the left leg down the mat, and then help your right knee across into a twist here. Now, we have lots of options. The block can be underneath that right knee. Same thing can happen with the blanket. Just fold that block like. You can extend that right leg. And you can also work that left leg back towards the right side. So all of those are viable options that will impact the way that this sacral region is twisting. Choose the right thing for you. Make sure you feel really supported. The right shoulder doesn't need to be anchored here if you don't want it to be. You can roll completely onto your left side, and you can use that blanket as that second blanket, maybe as head support. But you can keep that right shoulder anchored if that feels best and appropriate for you. You can also use the left hand to help encourage deeper rotation by either just using the weight of the hand or maybe giving subtlest amount of twisting pressure. How you settle into this shape should only be determined by what gives you the most amount of benefit here. Just continue to adjust your shape based upon what feels most impactful for you. So as these sailors set off on this adventure towards the other side of the island, they found their way into deeper and deeper jungles. And no matter how far, no matter how long, and no matter how many days passed, they never seemed to get any closer to the horizon. From time to time, discussions would break out about there's no way that the island they saw from the boat was this large. Now they must be losing their way in the jungle. So they began to create maps. And they began to mark trees, create stone stacks. And sure enough, if they ventured long enough, they'd come back to a marking they'd put in a tree or a stack of stones they'd set next to their trail. And this would always cause quite a bit of disruption, arguments between who had been in charge of the navigation, who had been in charge of the mapping. And so roles would get switched around. And over time, the group broke up into smaller groups, each determined that they would be the one that solved this puzzle, this riddle of this forest. Give yourself just 60 more seconds on this first side. And when it feels appropriate for you, let's bring that right leg back across our body. And we can move to the center of the map, let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. Oh, and settle your way into this shape. Little asymmetry from our single side twist, but just settle into this ease here. Really think about continuing that puddle relaxation through each cycle of breath. How that allows you more ease. And how that ease can work its way through the entirety of the body. It's 30 seconds here. When it feels right, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And we'll bring the hips over to the left side of the mat. Let the shoulders follow so that you align with the left edge of your mat. Right leg extends down. And we'll just help the left knee across the body. Same options here, although the options may play out differently for you. So remember, you can prop underneath the knee. You can help that leg get deeper into the twist, and you can also walk that right leg over towards the left side of your mat. Same thing with the left shoulder as well. It can stack or you can keep it anchored, depending on what feels best. And so these groups of sailors break up and they go off individually, small little groups, one or two at a time. But they have the same goal. Their goal is, they're gonna find the other side of this island. Each one makes and creates their own map. Each one marks their own trees and stacks their own stones. And each group that sets out fails just like the last. Eventually, one of the sailors has had enough. Rainy season starts to roll in. And so he heads off into the jungle by himself, and he comes back with these big palm leaves, and he makes himself a little hut. And he just goes in and he sits down. And at this point, all the other groups kind of reassemble. And they turn all of their frustration against him. They start calling him lazy and a quitter. They're telling him, we got to keep searching for this. We have to find the other side of this island. And he says, oh, you guys go ahead. I'm going to stay here. And this really sets them into a huff. If you're staying here, you're doing nothing. You're finding nothing. You're solving nothing. You're not helping us. He smiles, looks back at them, and says, we're already doing nothing. We're already solving nothing. We're just doing it with sore feet. Remember that the breath is the lead here into the physicality of the shape. The breath is allowing us find our way, to settle our way into the physicality of the shape here. Continue to link the openness you create with the breath, the respiration. ourselves 60 more seconds here on the second side. That feels appropriate. Bring our knees back to neutral. Let your body just relax. You can move and position back to the center of the mat. And then one last time, we'll allow the bottoms of the feet to come together and the knees to fall out wide. Group of sailors, minus the one, start to discuss if maybe this island is some type of a trap. It's haunted. It's some perplexing riddle. While they're all off trying to solve this and continually ending up in the same spot, the solo sailors starting to add fortifications to this little hut he's built. He's starting to plant seeds and harvest more coconuts. Starting to save the shells of coconuts and make little bowls. He sets up a system so that he can easily access water from the stream, the freshwater stream. And he's beginning to grow more and more comfortable in the experience of being on this island. Beginning to grow more and more purposeful with the way he builds and constructs things. Meanwhile, the other group of sailors is continually spinning themselves into constant bouts of frustrated arguments. Last 30 seconds here. feels appropriate for you. Let's bring the knees back to neutral. Keep the left foot planted and draw the right thigh in towards the rib cage. Give yourself a nice little squeeze. And then we'll switch our foot positions. Right foot stays planted. Left knee comes in for that little squeeze. We'll release. Pull both knees in towards that torso for a little squeeze. Think about the lumbar responding to this ask for space. And then we'll release the feet down to the mat. And walk the feet out to the edges of the mat. Let the knees fall in towards one another. Now you can use your blanket block or towel here in between the knees to give yourself a little bit more room and space. You may feel some of this abductor musculature as it's allowed to relax here, especially with a braced relaxed contact. You may also feel the lumbar responding as it is both relaxed and neutral. The most important thing we can feel here is just ease in the shape and ease in the breath. Pay attention to how the sacrum sits against the mat. And as the knees come in towards one another, the lateral edges of the sacrum and that musculature is pulled wide. Think about continuing that expansiveness. We'll give ourselves just about 60 more seconds here. Really pay attention to how the sacrum is getting spaced. as we sit neutrally against the mat, how you can impact that space. Eventually, it will feel appropriate to let the knees come back out to the width of the ankles and then walk the ankles and the knees back into the width of the hips. Maybe you offer yourself a little final sway here. Just this opportunity to reintegrate everything through movement. Maybe you just ask yourself if you have everything you need, if there would be anything that you could offer that would be impactful or beneficial. And if there is, you bring that into the practice. Just finding your body's last little bits of wants or needs. And then with that, allowing yourself to drift into a shape where you can appreciate Shavasana. As days continue to pass by, and weeks turn into months, one by one, the sailors start to return to the little hut, defeated and exhausted. They sit down. They're quite amazed by what this single sailor and his little hut have become. He offers them a coconut-based soup from this roaring fire. And one by one, he nourishes them back, just drifting into your version of stillness when you're ready. day, as all of the defeated sailors sat around a circle, one of them muttered under their breath, "Oh, the horizon is a lie. This island has no edge." And the sailor who has built the hut and is giving them soup and is nourishing them and is providing looks back and says, "This island isn't endless. Your search was endless. We were all seeking a place that doesn't exist, while we were missing everything we needed to be focused on." And slowly, as time passed, the group began to work together to build more and more of what they needed. This more and more of what was already around them. We'll start to move our fingers and our toes, our wrists and our ankles, elbows and knees, shoulders, hips, neck, head, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of the body will move. And we'll utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in. We'll find our way back into a seat. As you're settling here, think about how you can align your spine so that it is most impactful and find your way back into that breath. We'll let our eyes close. We'll bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, and you remind yourself that without clear focus and intention, even an endless journey can lead nowhere. And with focus and intention, a small circle can provide a lifetime of fulfillment. See how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. Love the heck out of you. Have a beautiful day. I will be back tomorrow and we will move. Love you. Mwah.